So it's my intent this morning to cover a couple of topics. First is to let you know where the Army's going at the sort of strategic, higher operational level, and then drill down specifically into the Signal Corps. I found this image while I was looking for things to excite you this morning as I put it into the deck. But after listening to Colonel Hart last night, the statement about skill and courage in the Signal Corps was pretty apropos. And for those who don't know his story, I encourage you to read it. No change currently to the vision and mission of the Canadian Army. Adaptive dispersed operations is the mantra, and that's certainly what the Army is leaning towards. And as a force generating L1, the Army's mandate is to force generate combat capable task forces, currently mapped to a number of lines of operation. General Heinz, the commander, is starting to think about rewording the mission to speak more about adaptability, responsiveness, and the task tailorableness, if I can use that as a word, of the Army. So it doesn't need always to be the LU-3 task force we put into Kandahar, which takes months to move, to set up, etc. The Army is equally capable of pushing out smaller forces, as we have into the Ukraine, which is about a company group plus, to do capacity development. So you might see some changes to this piece. Cette diapo parle à l'armée d'aujourd'hui. Les points clés, the Army is about the soldier. It's not about the platforms, it's not about the equipment. It's about the soldier who is well-led, well-equipped, and most importantly, well-trained. There should be no surprise that we are an Army based on infantry, reinforced by tanks. So we won't see, the days of 4 brigade and square battle groups. It really is infantry, medium weight, i.e. LAV. And there is some work started on formally defining the light force capability of the Army. Currently we have in each regiment the 3rd Battalion. We call it the Light Battalion, but they're light only because we couldn't afford to give them LAVs. They are not specially equipped nor specially trained for a light force capability role. Further, all of the enablers like EW, SIGINT, SIGs, medics, etc., don't exist at that formation operational level to be light. And certainly as I look into the audience and see Colonel Hewland from 21EW, pushing that light capability is what our Corps needs to do to fit into the light force that the Army is contemplating. Army of Tomorrow. Last year I shared with you the documentation hierarchy, so if you haven't read it and you're in the Army and you haven't read Advancing with Purpose, I encourage you to do so. It speaks to where the Army is headed, advanced dispersed operations, etc. I shared with you this last year as well. These are extracts from that document, and it clearly speaks to the network, which means our Corps, the Signal Corps, is instrumental in the success of future missions. And we know that, but now the Army knows that. Waypoint 2018, just released this a couple months back. It's that reference point on the path to the Army of the future. And again, it continues to speak about the support, command support capabilities delivered by our Corps as instrumental in the future capability of the Army. The commander is starting to equally talk in this document about moving away from, as I mentioned, the lines of operation for which we equip and generate forces, to generating a full-up brigade group. So Maple Resolve 2016 will have 3 maneuver units in it. It will essentially be the entire brigade group. And his intent in that is to then allow the government to ask us, what could we have ready? And it's going to be more than a specific line of operation task force. It's going to be a brigade group from which you can pick and choose what capabilities you want to deploy. So let me take a look. Now we'll move to specifics about the Corps. First, I'll cover a little bit about where the officer sits in terms of manning, and then I'll turn it over to Chief Richer, who will do the same. For the NCMs. You'll see on this slide that we're about 40 officers short, primarily at the rank of captain. 3 weeks ago-ish, before the last BSOC graduation ceremony, that number was more into the red by 32. So we were almost 69, 70 captains short. Which might not sound like a lot, but when a lot of organizations, particularly in Ottawa, have one signal captain in their organization, it becomes a challenge. We are at the point where there are field force gaps at the rank of captain, just trying to spread our corps where it needs to be spread to get things done. So although it doesn't look that bad with the recent graduation of the BSOC course, I can tell you that the demographics of our corps and the attrition rate and all of those things, the trend line's not in the right direction. So we will continue to struggle for the near future from a recruiting SIP perspective, which leads no end of challenge for myself and the career managers. And I'll mention what we're attempting to do about that after Chief Richer speaks to his part. Chief.
Bon matin à tous. Good morning, everybody. How many of you doesn't know me? Raise hand. First time. Okay. First thing, I want to set the table. I want to tell you a little bit of myself. Trained as a lineman. Okay. Got posted to 5 Brigade, 7th, 11th Squadron, 2 SIGs, 1 line. Sorry. After that, sergeant at the CFLRS recruiting school, LCF with the Quebec area, sergeant major que j'ai été, and right now as your corps chief, new corps chief, and I work in a new key position, which is I work for MFS, Military Family Service, under CMP. Okay, so basically I'm in the 3rd week in that position. Okay, I'm doing right now the changeover with Chief Don McIsaac. Okay, so bear with me. I do not know everything yet. Okay, it will come. Okay, as a tour, okay, I've done Golan, Bosnia, and Afghanistan. Okay, as you can see, you can read numbers. Okay, if you do have any question, Chief Warrant Officer Cote and Gannett, feel free. Okay, basically our main issue it's at the corporal. Hang on, the difference. Yeah, master corporal, the big gap, and the corporal private. I'm gonna let you read the numbers. Okay, the total of MR. Okay, next, that's me. Spacebar. There you go. Okay, AC score. That's the main gap, corporal, master corporal. Okay, corporal private. Okay, why do we have that gap? Any? Pardon me? It's not the recruiting, it's the training in the selection. Okay, that's the main issue. Okay, working on that, more to come on this issue. But that's our main, we've got a lot of 1.0 sitting in the unit. Okay, and waiting for training, waiting for selection, in which sub-up they will go forward. Okay, any question on MRs? That's it? Colonel?
So let me talk now about some of the challenges and what keeps me awake at night. MES IP, signed in October 11, and still in progress. Progress being somewhat slower than all of us would like. Let me talk about occupational structure. So the CISTM, the Communication for Management System Technology Manager. So this is the sub-OC into which LSTs, CSTs, and ISTs automatically go into upon promotion to the rank of warrant officer, and those ACIS Corps soldiers who wish to become Chief Comm Ops. That structure was based on the concept that at those rank levels, we wanted to have somebody who thought beyond their sub-OC. We want a soldier, an NCO that thinks system. And the thought process was that the CISTM would be that individual. The current HR construct of merit boards, of postings, of establishments doesn't allow us to manage that sub-occupation in the fashion that it was intended to achieve. To that end, and I will be putting this out in a more global communique out next week, it is my intent, because I don't have the final authority, nor does the commander of the Army as the managing authority. It's actually Chief Military Personnel that controls trade structures. But it's my intent to have the commander ask her to remove CISTM from the trade structure of the ACES Corps, of the ACES trade. We will then manage up to the rank of Master Warrant Officer in sub-occupations, because essentially that's what we're doing now. We're running separate merit boards. The career managers are managing warrant officers and master warrant officers by what they previously were, because that's how we have to employ a number of those soldiers. It will require that we map or remap all of the positions as to what sub-oc they should be, and that will take some time, but it's my intent to have CISTM removed from the trade structure of the ACES trade. Training, the chief mentioned it. We're still working to transform training at CIFC and elsewhere that would allow our soldiers to go from ACES Corps into the sub-ocs of their choice or of our choice. It'll be a multifaceted selection process, and speed up the time that they spend, or reduce the time they spend between DP1 and their sub-oc courses, to address that gap where we've got more ACES Corps than our structure would indicate, but less CSTs and ISTs. Not on there is spec pay. Spec pay is a process that is pretty laborious, done again by CMP. A year or so ago, as I took the chair, there was all indications that in about a month's time they would start the review. It takes about a month before DPPD, so Director of Pay Policy Development, puts their recommendation in front of the Chief of Defense Staff. In the intervening month, they had decided, so about a year ago, that they were going to stop doing analysis for a period of time while they retooled the process by which they do that analysis. They are still on track to have finished that retooling by the end of November. My team is almost in daily contact with them. The ACES file is the first file that they will do. It's kind of a risk-reward thing there, because they're going to validate their process or not by doing our core. But it's allowing us to influence, to a degree, their analysis, and is allowing us to make sure that we have exactly what they require to do that analysis. With any, and hope's not a COA, I know that, but if they do start their analysis at the end of November, then fingers crossed, by early New Year, their recommendation should be in front of General Vance, and toes crossed, shortly thereafter, we should have a decision. Land Force C4ISR program. So General Lewis mentioned the challenge our Corps is facing with respect, or our branch is facing with respect to joint C4ISR. I can tell you, just within the Army, we have that challenge with the Land C4ISR program and command support. So all kinds of initiatives and projects ongoing, not all of it tightly lashed up together as it should be. Signal Reserve. So the Signal Reserve, as many know, formerly the Comm Reserve, transferred lock, stock, and barrel from the IM group to the Army. There was some fear at the time that the Army would take all of those positions and turn them into bayonets. That hasn't happened. But what has happened is they've taken the old Comm Squadron, Comm Troop structure, and they've created Signal Reserve regiments to align with the Canadian Brigade groups in the reserve structure. The net result of all of that is it's disproportionate across the country. There are some signal regiments that have 3 subunits, establishment strength of 400 and some odd, and there are others that have a single squadron establishment of 131 positions, but yet they have the same tasks. So we're looking at rebalancing the positions and possibly adding positions to the signal regiments based on the CDS's direction that the Army grow the reserve footprint by some 900 positions, 300 of which are already spoken for into the ceremonial guards, but the remaining 650 to be spread across the reserve structure. Because of the success we've had in recruiting in some of the areas, some of the units are actually over strength. Signals is looked at favorably to add growth to the reserves in a measurable way. So I'm pretty confident that we'll be able to achieve that with the Director of Army Reserves. We're equally going to give them LCSSU. So the Army has LCSS, classified system. The reservists have some challenge with that, but we're going to look to give them a network capability for domestic operations, and we're doing that now. There was some concern about their ability to actually execute that task. Again, some units have soldiers who by day are DWAN administrators, or in fact they work in DLCSPM, building LCSS. So it's a no-brainer that those SIG regiment, reserve SIG regiments can maintain the equipment. But the West did a proof of trial. They believe that they can equally roll that out. So we're going to institutionalize an LCSSU for the reserve force. And I already mentioned SIG rebalance. The Army is looking at, as you know, we've gone back to a number of re-adoptions of royalness, not least of which is our Corps' title. But a year ago, we put up new ranks. And there still is some confusion, so I share this with you to address that confusion. I remember a poor Master Seaman who was exiting NDHQ as I was entering. She stopped, she saluted, and then she said, "I have no idea what you are, but I know I need to salute you."
Okay, new initiative that we have been that we've got the approval, which are the first one, our new March pass for the RCCS, which is the begun dull care, which you know right now. The other one, the approval to wear the spur with the mess kit as an option. Okay, so now you're aware. The division badges have been approved. We've got the approval as well. We start to wear it on the cat pad, with the cat pad. Okay, you all know about this. And that's pretty much it. The latest one that I know, it's the, actually I'm gonna send an email to all the chief. We need to do a survey if you would like to go back with the Royal Blue Beret. Okay, I will send an email to all the chief. With the info, correct me if, Colonel, if you do have different, but if we, the Corps, Signal Corps, decide, okay, it will be all the Corps, but not only one Corps that will wear the Royal Blue Beret. It's all the Corps will wear it's either all or none. Okay, so I will send, I would say within the next week, I will send an email to all the chief. I would like to get a survey to get your feedback and what you would, if you would like to. Okay, that's pretty much what I've got, Colonel.
So when the chief says all or none, the G1 heritage words are prior to unification within the Army, the corps and regiments that could do math wore blue berets. So ourselves, the guns, the engineers, and the EME Corps, so if one Corps goes back to the blue beret, it should be all four of us in the Army that go back. And certainly the guns are leading this initiative. They've squared their shoulders and they're taking this on. So it's my belief that in the not too distant future, the Army commander will have a package in front of him that will ask that the corps and the regiments that could do math, or that can do math, will re-adopt the blue beret. So more to follow on that. So lots of change in the Army and elsewhere. And I shared this quote with you before, and it is more appropriate today than it was even a year ago. Major Charles Palmer, who was the CWO of 5 CDSG Signal Squadron at the time, made the comment that, okay, you know, we often get asked, certainly within the Army, those signalers in the Army, how come LCSS crashes? How come I can't do certain things with it? And his comeback was, how come my C7 occasionally jams? It's just life, so get over it, figure out how to work through it, and we as a Corps will make it better continually. So I thought that video was pretty apropos, that it's not just the command support capability delivery that struggles with technology, but there's other folks that equally do. So with that, I'll open the floor up for questions if there are any.
So Lieutenant Colonel Lemieux, so FET training or CSS 1.1, probably my most important planning activity right now at the unit. We went from teaching these guys a course of 132 days which, I have master corporals and sergeant who are instructors, they still tell me that the poet course was the best course they've ever did in their career. And now we have moved that course to a course of 60 days for a multiplicity of reasons. A lot of pressure on us to react quickly, change that, either go back to FET, augment days, export the training, as we have done to George Brown College. What we are doing now, between now and December, we're taking kind of a pause. The OC of the squadron that is delivering FET training is undergoing an in-depth analysis that will answer the question. The basic question is, does the course deliver the soldier it needs to deliver at the end of the course? And what's the delta? What can we do? From my boss, Commander CTC, there is no more pressure to squeeze that course to 60 days. I don't feel that pressure anymore. So certainly it is an option, and I've told that to instructors and DOC to make the course possibly longer. I would be shocked that we would go back to a 132-day course, just based on the fact that they're not exactly doing what we ask them to do. But the door is absolutely, not a little bit open, but quite wide open to revamp the course. It is, I think, the most challenging intellectual activity going at the school right now of redesigning that CSS 1.1 and FET training. Colonel Lambert, since you handed me that problem, is there anything you want to add? But seriously, I get a lot of support from CATTC and CTC on this. The era of budget cuts and tightening the belt, I think we've bottomed out. So I see a brighter future for FET.
Well, that's my 2 cents I want to add. It's to answer your question. I'm not going to talk about LST in general, but all trade, all sub. Okay, the way I see it, like Colonel said, some decision has been made at a certain time with constraint. Okay, now what can we do? We look forward. What can we do to improve? Okay, that's how I see it. Because I heard a lot of comment. Okay, say, okay, forget about this. Okay, some decision had been made at a certain point. What can we do now to improve, to get better? That's all my points are.